a nation.
Thank you, Luna. I'll keep it here. All right, so in this era of globalization, we are all global citizens, and our interest transcends geopolitical boundaries. So, very good afternoon to everyone. My name is Girish, and today I'm going to talk about history as a conscience of a nation. So, national consciousness, it is something, a shared sense of identity that we all have, and it comes from either a common language, common ethnicity, or cultural background. And that, from there, it stems our sense of identity. Just last week, we had an announcement that Arvind Krishnan is going to be our CEO. And it's a moment of great pride that someone of our own is going to be leading IBM, and he's going to replace Ginny. And now if you look around, there are CEOs of many multinationals today who are leading. CEOs of many multinationals are Indians or Indian origin. And again, if I look back, it was a time when I was doing my first project. We had a client from the US come over, and they did a presentation of a project. And there were people of almost like 30 people sitting in the room, and they did a presentation and they asked a question. Is there anything more that you want to hear about the project? And we were all sitting, 30 people, but none of us stood up and asked a question. We didn't have the nerve to ask that question, or even stand up and be counted. From there, today we are here working for a multinational, and we are delivering projects, and referring to every one of us, complex projects, global projects. So we have come a long way, and then we have leaders of Indian origin leading multinationals. So the question is, there's no question, we have been successful, there's no doubt, but still, I think we need to introspect. Are we headed in the right direction? And it's a favorite quote of my daughter, actually. What got you here won't get you there. So there's no question that we are successful now. We are doing very well. But is it something that we continue to do? Is there anything different that we want to do? I think that's what we want to answer. And so what I'm going to talk about is a perspective, and it's my own personal perspective, and something that I want to share. So this chart here talks about the GDP of India over the last 20 centuries. And if you'll see here, we were contributing to 32% of the world GDP in the first century here. And then we were at 24% of the world GDP until 1700. We came down to 4%, and this is during the British rule for the 300 years. We came down to almost 4% when we got our independence. After independence, it came down to 3% until 1980. It is only in the last 30 years we have improved, and we are now at 7%. So what does this tell us? Up until 1200, that 1200 is not here, but we were around 24% of the world GDP, and we were the major economy in the world. China was second. China became first after 1200, and we were second. And there we had a lot of products that we used to sell globally, especially spices, cotton. We were leaders in metallurgy, and I actually specialize in metallurgy, so I'm going to cover that first. So there are two examples on this slide which talks about evidences of metallurgy and how good we were in metallurgy. So first one is the iron tiller. This was sometime in 300 AD, almost 1700 years back. It is still not corroded. It still stands there without any corrosion, and nobody can answer why and how it was done. The second evidence, I don't know, has anyone heard of wood steel? So the swords that were made in India were very popular. And so when we had invaders come to India and they used to fight wars, after the war, one of the first things they used to do is take all the swords made in India and take it back, because they were supposedly very good. And that steel that was used to make swords was called wood steel. And it is interchangeably used. There's another term called Damascus steel. Okay, so the unfortunate thing is we made those swords, we made that steel in our country, but today we don't know how to make it. And I did my master's in metallurgy, but in all of my masters or even bachelor's, we never had any information about our metallurgy in the past. All that we learned were books from AFS. AFS is American Foundation Society. So most of the books that we studied were AFS. There was nothing about what existed in the past, and especially metallurgy, Indian metallurgy. So those are two examples. Everyone knows Sushruta? Yeah. So medicine. So my mom, we have 3 doctors in our family. My wife is a doctor, my brother and his wife, they're doctors. And almost 13 years back, my mom was suffering from knee pain, and we were so close to getting a knee replacement done. And we went to so many doctors, all of my brother's friends, my wife's friends, and everyone suggested knee replacement. This was 13 years back. And I somehow was not comfortable. I went to an Ayurvedic doctor and I explained the symptoms, and he gave a medication for 6 months, and he told yoga and some pranayam and all of that. But after 6 months, that pain was gone, and it's been 13 years and she's still normal, no knee replacement. I met a friend just yesterday, actually one of my team members, and he had some issue with his sinusitis, and he was taking allopathic medicine. They gave him steroids, and because of which his immunity was down, so he had to stop it, and he switched to Ayurvedic. And now he says, I asked him why doesn't he drink tea, and this was his reasoning, because the doctor told him to stop drinking milk and tea, and he's all normal. So there is a lot of knowledge in medicine that exists today, but we always think Ayurveda as a fallback alternative. We never go for it as something as a first option. And Sushruta, there is a book that he has written. So this slide talks about the book, and it has details of cure for almost 1100 diseases and medicines from plants, mineral, and animal sources. Yeah. Has anyone heard about Katapayadi Sankhya? So this is, have you heard? Anyone? You have heard? Okay, good. Anyone else? Okay, so Katapayadi Sankhya is an encryption that was used in the past. And usually all the shlokas that we have, they can be decrypted using this Katapayadi Sankhya. And so every letter has a number. And this is a shloka. I'm not going to read it. I can't even read it and don't know the meaning of it. And this is all from Wikipedia. So this shloka, if you decrypt this will give you the value of pi to the 31st decimal. And this existed several centuries back. So today when we study in our school, we study as pi, and we are told that it comes from Greek and it came from the West, but actually this existed here with us long back. So that is on Katapi Adi Sankhya. I do also want to mention that Hanuman Chalisa, there is a mention of the distance between the earth and the sun. So there is a lot of information which exists, we just don't know the source, or we don't know how to get that information, and we are not even exposed to it. Okay, ancient knowledge, just a glimpse of what existed before and what we have lost. So we all have heard of Vedas and Upanishads. Does anyone know how many Upanishads? Are you familiar with this? There are almost like thousand Upanishads, and today what exists is only 108. So we have lost 99% of the Upanishads. And Shankaracharya, he has, I think he has written, covered about 10 Upanishads. That's it, just 10. And they are called Mukhya Upanishads. Those are the only Upanishads that he has written. Others are still up for interpretation. I visited Nalanda University. I'm sure everyone is aware. Nalanda University, I went there. It was very depressing. It's all in ashes. But the library of Nalanda University, it was burnt. I assume everyone is aware. It was burnt. And all of the teachers in Nalanda University were beheaded. Okay, so there were almost 3,000 of them. They were beheaded, and the library was burnt, and the library burned for 3 months. Can you imagine how much knowledge was lost in Nalanda University? And the teachers were, so usually they were the gurus, right? And everyone used to look up to them for knowledge. They were beheaded. So with that, we lost the knowledge. A lot of knowledge was, passed on generation to generation verbally. There was some of it which was documented, and a lot of it was verbally. And because of all the teachers who were killed, we lost all of the knowledge that they had. You have heard Takshashila. It was in today's Pakistan. That's where Chanakya studied, Chandragupta Maurya studied. There was Charaka, I think. He was a famous doctor. He studied in Takshashila. Very renowned. Today, the Ivy League, everyone who aspires to go to the US as Ivy League schools, at that time, they were the Ivy Leagues. People all across the globe used to come to India, to these universities. They used to take training outside to pass the entrance to these universities. So there's the Sharada Peeth, which is today in the old POK. Vikramshila, I don't remember where that is, but there are many other universities which existed, which we don't, well, we have heard of the two at least, Takshashila and Nalanda, but the others we don't. So what I covered today was just a few topics that were close to my heart. There are other topics also which raises an interest to say that there is something that we need to explore, and how is this related to what we started off with. So we have been successful today, but we have been successful mostly in the service industries, and we have been mostly following the West. It's all because we are following the West, and if you see our GDP today, it's 7% of the world GDP. US is about 21-22%, and if we still continue to follow the West, we can at best reach where the US is today. So if you split it maybe 15%, we can never reach where we were in the past, our glorious past. And if we want to reach our glorious past, I think we have to open our minds and first acknowledge that there was knowledge in the past that we don't use today. And once we have acknowledged, then it will open up the possibility of doing research on our past knowledge, and innovations will come from that. So that is my perspective. So I think it is just a way for us to switch gears, go back to our basics, and reinvent ourselves. Thank you.